Hey everyone. Hello? There you go. I'm Mike J. I'm with Running with Scissors. We're the original developers and owners of the Postal IP, so if you guys know who we are, that's what we do. This is Daniel Hickey. He's one of our programmers for Postal 4. He started with us last year, and he lives in New York, so he's here to talk about his experiences working on our games that I hope some of you have played or you will in the future. And then the other guy's here.
Yeah, I'm Kevin Roditelli. We got to announce some stuff. I'm from Behemoth Entertainment and Happy Tank, and this is...
My name is Rob Cannon. I'm working on a card game for the Postal franchise.
Yeah, that's one of the shit we're going to announce here, so...
Yeah, basically, the reason why we're here is that Behemoth Comics is going to be making a few different things involving the Postal IP. One of them is going to be a card game, which he's working on right now. So if you guys play different card games, there's going to be a Postal card game soon. And then there's going to be a comic book, as well as like some vinyl for our soundtrack stuff. So a bunch of physical crap that we don't really do, and they're going to do it for us. So.
Hell yeah. So are you excited to play card? Yeah, go a little bit louder for us, please.
Yeah, they're like, oh, this is a video game panel. Why do we want to play cards?
Hell yeah. So I'm super curious, Mike. How did you get with Running with Scissors? How did you meet Vince?
Yeah.
And what's your story?
So I went to high school. The guy that started Running with Scissors, his name is Vince. He lives in New York, but he's not here. So sorry about that. I'm the one you get. I went to high school with his son in the 90s, and I was in his computer class. And this kid that was in the computer class who knew like nothing about computers kept talking about how his dad owned a video game company. So, obviously that's like the joke to everybody, like, oh yeah, your dad owns a video game company, I'm real sure. And so one day I took him to his dad's office and I was wrong. He was the guy that made the original Postal game, and I made friends with him, and after about a couple of years we just randomly ran into each other and we laughed, and he's like, you want to work here? So 20 years later I'm still making this game, and I don't know how it's still going on, but it's still going on. So thank all of you. If you've played it or you're going to play it, you guys keep us in business, so that's what really matters to us. And
would it take a piss on Mike's desk in Postal 4? I'm the only one.
You're the only one, yeah.
You, Daniel.
Yes, what's up?
How did you start to work with Running with Scissors?
I was born into the family of Vince's, so I've just been along for the ride for a while. I graduated from Adelphi last year, and I had done previous work with Unity, and I had started a bit with Unreal, and I started off as an intern, and now I'm here as a junior dev.
Awesome.
Thank you.
What about you? Let's hear your story of how you got into Behemoth Comics.
My story is pretty simple. I did drop out school, and I started to write shit. And I met the Behemoth guys. I'm from Quebec, and I was like, yeah, I got a cool story and shit like that with Rob. Rob is actually the artist of our first book, and we did it together. We started to work on stuff together, and we just had like business ambition as well. So we're like, hey guys, this is what we want to publish. Like, I'm really into, of course, French comics. So I did bring a big French IP with a movie on Netflix and stuff like that. I was like, hey, I can bring all those shit. And we just partner up together and just join the company. And I think it's like that, when we want to create shit and we find the right vibe and shit like that, we just kind of fuse together and build something that we want. And I know Running with Scissors is like that as well. We had like some fans that did actually join the companies. Yeah. So that's pretty much how we are growing Behemoth right now. It's like we're all fan passionate. We all love the same shit, and we are growing something together. And all the project we work on and we work with, it's all stuff that we're passionate about. Like, I did grow up with Postal, actually. That's why I did reach out Running with Scissors to work with you. It's just like, I'm actually as old than Postal. I'm born in 97 as well. So we both are going to have our 25 anniversary in 2022.
Yeah.
So
you'll be 25, Postal will be 25 the same year. So.
Hell yeah, congrats, Mike.
Yeah. You were born to Postal.
I was born.
Yeah.
Hopefully I won't do the shit that the dude is doing, so.
Well.
Not today.
So I don't know, does everybody in here, has everybody played Postal or know what the IP is?
Yeah. Awesome.
Right. Just making sure, because for people who don't, I just want to sort of give the synopsis of what Postal is and what it was. Postal 1, what's up? You don't know what it is. All right, well, I'm going to give you the elevator pitch to what Postal is. The first Postal came out in 1997. Back then, games were a little different. Violent games were popular, but violent games were like Doom, Quake. You weren't shooting at innocent people. There weren't. Yeah, it wasn't like run-of-the-mill stuff. GTA wasn't out yet. Games were just very different. And the first Postal came out, and it was the first game where you could actually just do whatever you wanted. It wasn't an open-world game. It was an isometric top-down shooter. But while the mission was to kill the hostiles, meaning the people that were shooting at you, you could also shoot everybody else. The sound effects were very real. The game was jarring. It was dark. It wasn't particularly funny. And it very quickly became synonymous with ultra-violent video games. Joseph Lieberman, the senator from Connecticut, he took the game in front of the Senate in 1997, and he said it was one of the top 3 worst things for children next to Calvin Klein jean ads, Marilyn Manson, and Postal. So, like, you see these 3 things, and you're like, oh, okay, well, that sounds like the best marketing campaign ever, right? Like, this guy just, the Barbra Streisand effect. So he takes it up in front of the Senate, and it's like, oh, cool, look at this free advertising. And the publisher, which was a company called Ripcord Games, which was a subsidiary of Panasonic, they didn't like it. And the retailers, while they weren't stopping selling it, they were, like, taking it off the shelves, putting it behind the counter. And it very quickly went from behind the counter to gone everywhere. Banned all over the world. Something like 12 countries originally. It was illegal to sell the game in Sweden, Germany, New Zealand, Australia, among others that I don't know off the top of my head. Fast forward a few years later, that's when I started the company. I started in 2001. We were working on Postal 2. Violent video games were like everywhere at that point. GTA 3 was a phenomenon. We didn't think we'd have any problems. How wrong we were, because the word postal has like a different meaning in people's lexicon. Like, it's not overly used nowadays, but back in the early 2000s, it still was a really popular word that just really meant going crazy. And we couldn't find a publisher for Postal 2 to save our lives. We were like, what is this? We have this game where you can pee on people and use cats as silencers on the end of a gun. Why can't we find a publisher for this? This is funny. And so we kind of went at it ourselves. We did get an indie publisher that really sucked. And we sold a few games in the United States. We had a couple deals in a few different stores, but we really got big internationally. The game was really big in Russia, of all places. So, like, sometime around 2005, we were starting to go to Russia a lot because what we weren't experiencing here, we were experiencing there. Like, we were the GTA of Russia for a while. So we were going to these conventions, and kids are going crazy meeting us, and it's very weird because, like, we're just this indie developer out of Tucson that can't sell games in Best Buy or Walmart, and all these Russian kids are playing our games, and they know who we are, and it just was a very, very weird time. And that leads to what was then Postal 3. I'm sure some of you know the nightmare that was Postal 3. Our publisher in Russia was called Akela. They were a big company, one of the top 3 game companies in all of Russia. They had a couple hundred people in their studio. They had a specific studio they wanted to make Postal 3 with. Like, we didn't have the money to fund this big new game that was going to be on Xbox. They wanted to do it. We were cool with it. They were selling millions of copies of Postal in Russia, so it seemed like a good idea at the time. The economy tanked around the world. I don't know if you guys remember that, like 2008. And the video game industry in Russia took a huge bath. So this is like brief Russian gaming politics for you. Piracy's huge, so the industry sells the games for just like $1 more than the pirate games. So regular games are $3, pirate games are $2. So the industry was already teetering on very thin ice. And once the economy tanked, people stopped buying the $3 games and started buying the $2 games. Then the industry took a huge bath. All the good programmers left the industry. All the good artists left the industry. And what was the A team working on Postal 3 became the B team very quickly. Oil tanked. The Russian market went really in the shitter, and the game got postponed. We were hoping it was going to get canceled. It did not. They eventually got what we would call the C team working on the game, and then they, like, polished the turd, put it out, and that is what's known as Postal 3 today. It is trash. Don't spend your money on it. We don't get any money from it, so if you ever want to play it, don't pirate it. Do whatever you got to do if you really want to see it. As a company, we were in a weird spot at that point because our games weren't really out for anybody to buy other than on our website. And in 2012, Valve started what's called Project Greenlight, where They allowed companies to put up their indie games. Fans would vote on what they wanted to see on Steam. And we had been like fighting tooth and nail to get our games on Steam for a while, but Valve wasn't hearing any of it. They were just like, no, this is not what we stand for. Your marketing is everything we don't like. Well, Greenlight put our game up, and Valve immediately pulled it down. They actually thought it was just like a hoax, like some kid was putting it up. But we said, hey, guys, come on, we're indie. Like, just because people know who we are doesn't mean we're not an indie developer. They said, all right. So they put it back up. We got voted through on the first wave. And in 2012, Postal 2 and Postal 1 made it onto Steam, which was like a huge trajectory change for the company and for the brand, because we went from like no one being able to find our stuff to all of a sudden anybody that plays PC games being able to find our stuff online. And it was very, I don't know, rewarding's not the word, mentally rewarding, and just all of a sudden getting recognition from the fans, because one of the big things about Steam is that, you know, your user review score is completely based on what the people say, not what the press says. We've had a real hate-hate relationship with the press for the last 25 years. So, like, all of a sudden having a 95% user review score on Steam was, like, very heartwarming, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And we were making all this money, and we didn't know what to do with it. And so we decided, you know, we're selling hundreds of thousands of copies of Postal 2 10 years after we put it out. What should we do? And we made an add-on for Postal 2 10 years later. So I put a small team together of fans. They were purely Postal 2 modders that would contact us all the time with fun stuff they were doing. We put them together. They put out an add-on for Postal 2 that's called Paradise Lost. It's probably one of our best games, so if you haven't checked it out, get on Steam and check out Paradise Lost. Shortly after that, we had the real great idea of remaking Postal 1. We thought the reason that Postal 1 didn't have a high attach rate on Steam was because it was an old game and a crappy engine. It didn't run very well. So we remade it on Unreal 4, and nobody bought it. So yeah, so we remade Postal 1. It's called Postal Redux. It's actually our first console game now. It's out for Switch, oddly enough. We do have a console game. It's on Nintendo. For any of you, that's very, very weird. And PlayStation. Microsoft said no. Don't ask me why. If you all want to write them a letter and tell them you'd like to see it on Xbox, please do. We'd really like it to be there. So Postal Redux came out, huge failure. Put us in a different sort of mode, like what can we do next? What can Running with Scissors do to be sort of relevant again? And the answer was Postal 2 was still like wildly popular on Steam. Like come 2016, I'm still selling tons and tons of copies every month, and it's $1. It's cheap. We basically give the game away every month. And so we decided that's what we needed to do. We needed to remake Postal 2. So we started what was called at the time Postal 2x2, which was just an HD remake of Postal 2 in the new Unreal Engine. And it quickly became very obvious that it was like way too expensive of a project to not just make another game. So we decided, you know what, fuck it, let's make Postal 4. We then spent a year trying to sell Postal 4 to publishers. And, you know, almost 20 years after the original game, we still can't get a publisher that wants to touch our brand. It's toxic. So we put out Postal 4 in early access in late 2019, and it's done very well. And we've been there ever since. That's what we're showing at the show. The game will be out of early access sometime in the early next year. And more recently, we licensed another Eastern European company to make another Postal game, which seems like an awful idea after the story I just told you. But they're Polish, they're not Russian. Poland happens to be a huge Postal community as well. We have a lot of fans there, for better or for worse. We got hit up by multiple companies. One of the companies out of Poland is the guys that did the Postal Redux port for consoles, so you can thank them. MD Games is the company that made Postal Redux for Switch and PlayStation. And then a company called Hyperstrange is making a game called Postal Brain Damaged, which we announced last year at whatever the festival. It's not on the top of my head right now. But we just released a demo for it last week. So if you guys have Steam accounts, check out Postal Brain Damaged. We're showing it at the booth too, 3027, Behemoth Comics book.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's like a boomer shooter, like 90s style Quake, Doom, run and gun, but very funny. You still piss on people and stuff. So, yeah, that's my elevator pitch. That was a little longer than 5 minutes. So,
It was great, dude.
so 20 years later, I'm doing this for 20 years now. I'm very happy that I can be here, that I can tell this story, and that we're still making these games. Because if you told me when I was 20 years old that I would still be selling the game that I'm making then in 20 years, I would call you nuts. So Like it's nice, it's humbling, it's cool, and I'm happy to see you all here to hear the nonsense that I have to say. So, thank you.
So why did you take the decision to go from top down to first person from the 1 and Postal 2?
So Postal 1 was sort of based on Robotron, the old classic arcade game Robotron. It's not the same game, it's just the same controls, the same idea that it's kind of a frantic top-down shooter. But, you know, around the time that Postal 1 came out, like first-person shooters were becoming a really big thing, right? Like we went through the early 90s with things like 007 and then Quake and Doom and you know, all those other games that came out of id. And so it was like, you know, we really need to shake it up and get things out of this isometric view, make a first-person shooter. And I don't know, it just kind of worked that way. And we kind of changed as a company, right? Like Postal 1 is serious, it's dark, it's funny, but it's not really funny. It's just dark humor. Whereas Postal 2, while it's still darker than Postal 4, Postal 3, Paradise Lost, it's a lot more funny. It's a lot more like comedic. There's slapstick humor to it. So. Oh, that's one piece of the history I forgot to tell you. There is a movie that was made about Postal. It was made by a very famous, amazing film director named Uwe Boll. I'm sure you all know him. He contacted us in something like late 2005, and at first I was just like, delete. I don't want to do that. And after a while, I started thinking to myself, we don't make very good games. We make these shitty games, and he makes these shitty movies. So like, this seems like a really good marriage. Like we can make a shitty movie together. And so we contacted him. He's a really nice guy, total sweetheart, loves films. And he said we would work on the script together if we would put together a treatment. And so for whatever reason, like we're this Postal 2 developers now, we have this funnier game. We're like, we need to make this movie serious. And we wrote this treatment of this like, you know, dark comedy that was not particularly funny, but it was brutal. And we gave him our treatment, and he was like, no. He just threw it away. He's like, I want to make a slapstick comedy. And at the time, it seemed like a horrible idea. He sent us his first draft of the script, and the opening scene is a 9/11 joke, which on paper was maybe the worst thing I've ever read in my life. And, you know, my family's from New York, Vince's family's from New York, so, like, reading this stuff was just like, this guy's so tone-deaf. Like, and there's nothing we can do at this point. We've signed the deal. He's going to make this movie. And he films the scene, and he sends it to us, and it's, like, really, really good. And it, you know, you sometimes feel bad watching it, but that's the opening scene in the movie, and it's definitely the best scene in the entire movie. So it starts off really good, and it starts to trail off through the movie. But if you haven't seen the Postal movie, we have it on Steam. It was on Amazon Prime. I don't think it's there anymore. These guys are looking to license it, maybe put out a nice VHS for it if you guys have a way to play VHS. Maybe Blu-rays. I still sell copies of it on our website, I think, for $3. So if you really want to see Uwe Boll's best movie, and I say that sincerely, it is his best movie. That doesn't mean a lot, but it is watchable. It is funny. If you get high, it's probably funnier. But yeah, there is a movie based on us. So, you know, nowadays there's a lot more video game movies, but back then there wasn't a lot. So it was kind of cool to us that our stupid little game was made into a stupid little movie. So we did trademark the words "the worst game ever." So we like to call our game the worst game ever. And that came from a quote, an almost direct quote from a review for Postal 2. Computer Gaming World gave it the first 0 out of 10. And the quote from the review was, "Until they package syphilis, Postal 2 is the worst product ever foisted upon the consumer." The guy that wrote that review's name is Robert Coffey. Turns out he's a great guy. I'm friends with him now, but at the time it was a little bit jarring to read something like that, and other people have gotten zeros since then, so we're not the only one in history. But we did receive a Guinness record for that because back in the day there was a website before Metacritic. It was called Game Rankings, and they would list out different reviews from different sites. We got a 0 from Computer Gaming World. We also got a 0 from their sister magazine, which was just the same review in one paragraph, like pretty much just like, "This is packaged syphilis." And then another site gave us 100. Postal 2 is not a perfect game by any metric, but a real website that was listed on Game Rankings gave us 100. So we were submitted to the Guinness World Record for the most critically divisive game in history. And we were... As it turns out, the Guinness company is a scam, and they want you to pay them lots and lots of money to keep that title. We did not pay them, so you can't find that on the website. It doesn't exist as far as they're concerned, but I have the email from them saying we got the award. So if you're ever playing a game and your mother or somebody comes up and they're like, what is this crap you're playing? You're like, this is Guinness World Record winning crap, okay? It's the worst game ever. Get off my ass. So anyway, sorry I had to interject about the movie, and that led to that. So.
But there is a second movie coming up, a documentary, right?
Actually, a couple years ago, I was contacted by some kids that live in Tucson, and they were starting a YouTube channel, a gaming YouTube channel called Playtest TV, and we met for lunch, and we bullshitted for a couple hours, and I don't know if you can tell, but I tend to just ramble on and on about this crap. And after a couple hours, they look at me and they're like, yeah, this isn't really going to work as just an episode of the show. We think we just want to make a documentary about you guys. So I was like, okay, cool. People blow smoke up your ass all the time. We've had people contact us about a lot of different things. So it's kind of cool to be here with people that didn't blow smoke up our ass. Like these guys are actually making a card game and a comic book. But IP licensing stuff, you get a lot of crap. And with the documentary, we were like, all right, cool, you guys can follow us around. And so they started following us around with cameras. And I'm telling you this, and they're not here right now, so you might think I'm lying. But they have been following us around for a couple of years. They came to PAX with us last year, right before the pandemic started. And it actually looks really cool. I can't say it's going to put us in the best light. That's not what a documentary does. They're there to tell a story, probably with a narrative that is mildly against us, but that's okay. We understand that's what's got to happen. So if you're ever thinking, I need to see a documentary about these idiots, it's called Going Postal, The Legacy Foretold. If you go to goingpostaldoc.com, you can watch the trailer. It just dropped a little while ago. They ran an Indiegogo campaign so they could finish it. They were looking for, I think, $15,000, and they ended up raising close to 40 grand. So, another humbling thing, watching people that are just making a movie about us get overfunded on what they're looking for. So, yeah, there's a second movie, but it's not Postal 2. We actually, but on that topic, actually, we have been in discussions for a long time with various people, including the guy that played the Postal dude in the Postal movie. His name is Zach Ward. He's actually a filmmaker and a producer, and he does a lot of things other than act. And he's kind of bitter about the whole situation with the movie because while he's been a character actor and he's done a lot of things, that was his big break. He was the lead in the movie. It had a real budget. It was a $20 million movie, and it never really came out. And so he's kind of been bitter about it for a long time, and he really does like the character. He likes the brand. So we've been in various talks with him over the years to do something. Nothing's real right now, but we'd like it to happen. I mean, we'd like there to be another movie. I don't want to say it's not gonna be Uwe Boll that makes it because he has a funny way of making things happen, but he's not making Postal 2 right now. So
Cool. Daniel, I'm curious, how was it to grow up in the family of Postal?
It's actually a whole lot of fun, in case you wouldn't guess. But yeah, it was fun. I got into game development by just coming over to Vince's house, and we would just cook food. I would ask him questions about how the game industry works. He would occasionally invite his other people that he knew in the industry over, and there's always something going on with him, so it's entertaining.
Awesome.
yeah, we're real fun guys.
I bet so. So, Mike, what the fuck is going on with the bidet?
With the bidet.
The bidet, yeah. That's more French than I tout, dude. The pronunciation of the shit.
So for those of you who don't know, my title at the company is Chief Bidet Officer. I just became a strong proponent of clean assholes a few years ago, and I like to preach that gospel as much as that sounds ridiculous. And it sort of became a joke around the office, and I use the word office loosely. Our company is completely remote. We've been remote since 2011. Me and Vince are the only ones that live in Tucson other than our art director, who just started back up with us again a few months ago. So other than the three of us that work in Tucson, everybody else is remote. So the joke around the office means me talking about it on Google Chat. But I would constantly be talking about bidets and to ad nauseum. And my lead designer was like, we need to put this in the game. And so now there's a whole day in Postal 4 dedicated to bidets. And I'm the mayor of the town, and my house is a giant toilet. And that's sort of a run-on joke. In Postal 2, my office was in the toilet. So I don't know. It's just become something we do. I don't know. I do get a lot of questions about that, actually. Like, what's so funny about this? This isn't very funny. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Toilet humor's funny to me.
So I don't know if you can talk about a little bit about it, but what's coming up in the next update? What are you working on right now for Postal 4?
So we put Postal 4 out in October 2019. So it's been almost 2 years that it's been in early access. Postal 2 was a week in the Postal Dude's life. So the game take place over Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We decided to use early access as a way of almost giving episodic content. We released the first build of it as just Monday. We just released a very, 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 very broken version of Monday. And we were actually really nervous when we put it out, not just because we hadn't put out anything major in a while, but also because it was like in a really, really bad state. So we put out Monday. It did really well. We have a lot of goodwill with the fans on Steam somehow because what we gave them was a steaming pile of crap at first. And we spent a lot of time getting it working a lot better. And then over time, we've released Tuesday and then Wednesday. And we just released Thursday a couple months ago. The Friday update's going to come out hopefully sometime later this month or early next month. And then we'll spend a couple of months getting the game into release shape and get it out of early access, which is called, the 1.0 version of the game. And that'll be out sometime in the first quarter next year. So Postal 4 will be done, let's say, late January. And then Postal Brain Damaged is going to come out in May. And then I assume that sometime in the year 2022, we will have console versions of both of those games out all over the place. So we're definitely hoping for PlayStation for Postal 4. I'm not sure we'll ever get it running on Switch, but if we can get it running on Switch, it'll be there. And I don't know. We really hope Microsoft allows it. As far as Brain Damaged, they're going to get it running on all the consoles. So hopefully by the end of 2022, we have a few different games out for every platform there is. It's kind of been like our pipe dream for the last 25 years. And being able to say now, hey, if you have a Switch, you can buy Postal. It's pretty crazy for us to be able to say that. So I would like to be able to have more games on console.
Hell yeah.
So buy them, please. For the love of God, buy more copies of Postal. Write letters to Microsoft.
So all the gaming industry did change from the beginning of the 2000 and now in 2020 something,
Yeah. Well, it's hard for me to talk about that without getting bothered because every major publisher has some sort of game that's wildly violent and wildly offensive and all that stuff. And at the same time, I still have to make this game where we have to walk on eggshells with everything we do, right? We had a kid port Postal 1 to Android back in 2015, and we put it up on the Play Store for beta. It was out there while he was working on it. And after a couple months, it got completely pulled down off of the Google Play Store. They wrote us a letter. They said, your game's banned from the Play Store. And back then, nothing was banned from the Play Store. The whole point of the Google OS is that anything goes. And they told us that we violated their terms of service, and they wouldn't tell us why. They said the game glorifies violence. Our game glorifies violence, which it does. But they sell thousands of titles and movies that glorify violence. And I actually spent an afternoon writing up a very well-written email saying, thank you for letting me know. Is there anything we can do? Also, here's a list of other titles that you sell all the time that violate this thing that you told me. And their response was, thank you for letting us know. Guess what? They haven't pulled any of those titles down. So we were removed. We were censored only 5.5 years ago on the Google Play Store. So it's it still is going on. Germany, our game is still banned in Germany to this day. Right now, you can only buy Postal 4 in Germany, but that's only because the Board of Indexing in Germany hasn't indexed the game yet. They probably will. It's just a matter of time that they will do it. Every other game is for sale in Germany now. They approve just about everything. And to be fair, we do have a legal team in Germany right now working on getting Postal 2 de-indexed in Germany because Germany's top 3 country in the world for gaming. I mean, it is wildly popular there. Not just us, everything. Gaming is huge. If you ever want to go to the biggest games festival in the world, it's called Gamescom. It is in Cologne, I think, is where they host it now. That is the most wild video game convention you'll ever go to. We went a few years ago. It was crazy, but it just sucks for us because I get, I'd say probably 10 plus emails every day saying, hey, I'm in Germany. I can't find your games on Steam. And I have to like show them the way to do it. There is a way to get games working there, but you have to sort of circumvent the law. So we're still dealing with this like a lot. And the industry's changed as a whole, right? Like there's so many games out there like Call of Duty and all these games are so violent. Mortal Kombat, and it doesn't bother me. I want all these violent games to be out there all the time. I would just like consistency in the industry. I would like them to like be able to look at us without saying, oh, that's Postal. Like I know about that game. And yeah, we've had the discussion in the past of should we change the name? Should we come up with something else? And that just doesn't fly, right? Like we are who we are because of the name, and we're going to stick with it. So, I mean, if in 20 years we're still getting banned from stores, then we're still getting banned from stores. I mean, we've kind of like lived in the sewer this long, so. Would it be nice if we could sell out for once? Yeah. Have we? No. No. I mean, we did change the ending to Postal. Thank you. Thank you. I think you're clapping about me selling out. It'd be nice to make a little money from this.
So a show on Disney Plus is coming, right?
I don't want to toot our own horn, but I think if we were going to have a show anywhere, it would have to be on something significantly like RedTube or Pornhub Pro or something like that. You know, Postal coming to Pornhub.
It's Premium. It's super good. If you want to go on Pornhub and you love porn, Premium is a really good service, guys.
They're not sponsoring us, but it would be great if they were. It would save me $10 a month. Yeah. So anyway, like the industry, I don't know. It's hard to say because I can go into any Best Buy, I can go into any GameStop, Walmart, and I just see rows of these violent games, and it doesn't bother me. It just bothers me in the sense that my game's not there, and it hasn't been, and we don't know why, other than we're the Postal guys. Like Postal 2, yeah. I mean, I said it earlier. You can pee on people, you can use cats as silencers, but the missions are not violent. You're not given the mission of killing people. Like our games at this point are only as violent as you are. The missions are docile. It's a game about nothing. It's like Seinfeld. It's a game about nothing. You're just going through the week in the dude's life, and things happen around you. And if you want to kill a bunch of people, go for it. If you want to pee on a bunch of people, please go for it. If you don't, you want to run away, you can do that too. And we don't really get credit for that. Like they're like, well, it's Postal, so you're supposed to kill people. And it's like, well, you're not supposed to. We just give you the ability to do it. Like you really just needed to go buy milk, and you just really needed to go cash your paycheck, and you just needed to go piss on your dad's grave, and you just needed to go confess your sins. Like these are the stupid missions in Postal, and that's the whole point. Like it's supposed to be like sort of a reflection of society and watching things happen in the way that people react. Like we have a lot of missions that have protesters because historically the company's been protested before. Not recently, but back in the 90s, the company was protested, so we dealt with that a lot, and we sort of made fun of that. And obviously you'd think like we're like the poster child of what is cancel culture. I mean, that's what we make. We make the definition of cancel culture, but we're still here. I think at this point, for the most part, the community and just gamers in general has sort of accepted what we do as like, they're idiots, like just let them do whatever they want. But the publishers, on the other hand, just won't touch us with a 10-foot pole. So it's kind of fucked up.
With what you just said, do you think that Postal games are actually more relevant today than when it was created with the content inside?
I don't know about more relevant today. I think it's just more apparently relevant, right? Like when Postal 2 came out, there wasn't a bunch of social media. You didn't see that all of our ideas were relatively rooted in what was going on. I mean, the Taliban are a big deal in Postal 2. Like the hanging Chads are a big deal in Postal 2. So we had these election jokes and we had these Taliban jokes, and yeah, you'd think like that's pretty passe. Except right now, like it's all about election jokes and Taliban jokes again. So it's, there's 7 scripts in Hollywood and there's only like 1 in the world, and it just keeps happening over and over and over again. So here we are.
Right. I know it's always a classic question at panels. What will be the best advice for someone who want to get into the game industry or just start making games for both of you?
So when we put our team back together for Postal 4, it was 100% made up of fans. I mean, we only hired from the community. Like The Steam Workshop community is huge, and there's so much content there, and it was very easy to sort of snipe these kids that were like super eager to work on their favorite game, and passion is like the most important thing, right? So if you're looking to break into the industry, you really should just be working on what you love, and that doesn't mean you're going to get a job doing it right away or ever, but you should find the game that you like, and you should make mods to that game, and you should really pick a lane. Like, I realize they give these game degrees out now that tell everybody, like, you have this broad set of skills. You can be an artist, you can be an animator, you can be a sound designer, you can be a... No, you can't. Like, pick a lane, find something you're good at and something you like to do a lot, because whatever you like to do, you might not like to do anymore when you have to do it as a job every day for the rest of your life. So find something you really like to do and just start doing it. And that doesn't mean go get a $50,000 degree in it, because I don't know very many devs that will hire students over somebody else with more talent that just happens to have a great portfolio, right? Like, it's all about your portfolio as far as I'm concerned. A degree is nice, and it's a good foundation. I'm not against school. I have a degree. Get your degree if you can, but I don't think it's the end-all be-all. The best thing you can do is work on what you want to do and put together a very nice portfolio that you can shop around, and shop it around. Be like your own marketing whore. Get your stuff out there. Contact all the developers you love. You know, try to be as active as you can on social media, and just make sure the people that you want to see your stuff will see it eventually. That's really my advice. Or be born into it, or just randomly end up in a high school class with some kid whose dad owns a company. You know, it's nepotism and accidental contacts sure are a powerful force in society. But like I said, you know, we went from like 15 guys on the team when we released Postal 4 to close to 40 at the high point. And I can't say everybody on the team was a huge Postal fan when we hired them, but most were. When we were at 30, we were at 30 Postal fans, which is pretty crazy. And it doesn't necessarily always make for the best quality of work, but it definitely makes for the most passionate work. Like, game development's hard. I don't know if you guys have read, like, the industry has been in a lot of trouble over the last few years because of crunch culture and making devs work crazy hours to get these ridiculously high-quality AAA games. I mean, every time you play a AAA game and you're like, wow, that's a really cool feature, remember that somebody broke their back to make that feature. And it's pretty sad, and we're very, like, anti-crunch culture at Running with Scissors. Like, we may come off as these tough idiots that don't care about anything, but I do care about my developers' like sanity and sleep schedule and just getting out of the house and doing things that aren't making the game, because burnout's real. It'll happen really fast. That's why I was saying earlier, you know, figure out what you think you want to do, because if you're a generalist, you're going to realize you're not great at a lot of things. You're really only great at one, and work on that and make sure it's what you want to do for the rest of your life. Because, you know, as gamers, I mean, I'm a gamer too. Like, you eventually stop loving games so much, right? Like, when you're in an industry of something you like, you might not like it for long. And so it's hard for me to say exactly what will make anybody get a job, other than you need to do what you like to do the most and try your hardest to get it out there. That's a really long way to say that. But.
Amen.
Daniel, did you want to add something to this?
I would love to. Yeah, so what I always tell people, I did 5 years of school. Didn't really like school that much. If it wasn't a game dev class, I would not pay attention, and I would just open up Unity and start making shit. Because end of the day, if you want to be an artist, you should probably draw. If you want to be a programmer, you should program. And it's the exact same of, like, I jog. At first, you're going to be shit at it. You're not going to be able to keep the endurance. But the more and more you go at it, the more you build it. You definitely learn a lot of stuff from a lot of fuck-ups. Just sometimes you'll compile stuff, it won't work, and you're just bashing your head against a wall, but eventually you just keep doing it, and it pays off. So just keep trying. And as he's a great resource here in New York is Playcrafting. They are all indie devs in New York, and they just show off their games in the Microsoft building. It's free. Yeah, it's super easy to get to, right by Penn Station. I used to go there. They do one every season, and they have like a 3-day little convention somewhere else, and they just get local devs from the tri-state area. Those people are great. You can ask them questions. Sometimes they might even have offers or stuff, so just get out there and start meeting other devs.
Awesome. So Rob, what's the card game? Oh yeah, go for the clap. Oh yeah.
All right, so what I'm working on is a card game that's based on the Postal franchise. And so right now it's called Postal, the card game. And we're going to get a juicier name for it once we kind of figure out more of the mechanics. But
Butt saucer name.
yeah, butt saucier name on its way. I promise. So the general principle is to have kind of a simple party game that you can teach to your drunk-ass friends and hopefully not confuse them. If this game will confuse them, then you probably need to get new friends because it's going to be very simple. The idea is to basically have like not a deck building game, but you're drawing cards and making a hand and you're trying to put sets down, and there will be the to-do list like you have in the game, and you're going to pull 2 or 3 of those every game, and the first person to complete all of their to-dos is the winner. And so those will be like have a set of a certain suit, and the suits will be things like wealth or weapons or something like that. That's related to the content of the game. And so if you, you'll be able to play your sets, and there's other also ways to fuck with your opponents and all that sort of stuff. So we're still working on the concepts and the details, but the mechanics of the game are pretty firmly in place. So we're excited to get going on that, and we'll hopefully be play testing pretty soon. So we might be sending out a way to reach out to us and get involved with that in the future. So there you go.
Awesome. Cool.
That's the short version.
I'd like to call it the worst card game ever.
I think that's a great, we could definitely put that on the...
Write that down.
Put that on the chalkboard.
Trademark.
Is the art not coming up on the screen?
Well, it needs to be plugged in.
We need someone from New York Comic Con to help.
Can we get somebody to
I'm gonna
plug in
dick
this
around
cord?
with it.
No, there's an HDMI cord right there, I think.
Go for it.
This is the art that he's been working on so hard.
It's not cropped because we had some fun problems getting into my Dropbox. So, just use your imagination and slice off the edges of this. I'm not sure what to pull.
It was showing up there when you were working on it, so. We don't know. You might not be able to see it. We're sorry. You'd think we know how to use computers, but we don't.
Yeah, this wasn't in the rehearsal. Sorry, guys.
Even game development studios need an IT department. I don't know, man. I think they're coming to help. Well, while we try to do this, does anybody have any questions? Because we're up here, and I could talk all day myself.
Somebody knows what they're doing somewhere.
Oh, yeah, actually it is available on our own website if you want to play the Android version of our game, which I can't promise you works on all new Android phones because obviously development stopped on that game a while ago. It's available on runningwithscissors.com or postalgames.com. So the APK is available, yeah. That actually sounds like a really cool idea, and I have not. But now I have, patent pending. But thank you. That's actually a really excellent idea. Thank you.
I might steal that idea too.
Over there.
So since Guinness won't acknowledge the record that you guys have, have you considered just taking a screenshot, email, printing out, and sharing it?
Yeah, I actually, I did recently do that. I saved a PDF, and I was like, and I actually tweeted it, but I didn't make a whole section for it on the website. But I should, like the Guinness record they don't want you to know about. That's what we have. So, I think if I do that though, they might send me a bill. So, I mean, whatever. I guess at this point, it's probably worth a couple bucks.
Can you sign my petition?
Yes, of course. Failed's the wrong word. I mean, it hasn't made $1 yet. So does that make sense? It's not that it's made $0. It's just not broken even as a game. It's still underwater. It is a very well-made game. It's not optimized very well, but back then it was sort of our test incubator for an Unreal 4 game. It's the first game we made in Unreal 4. I think the problem with it was is that it's just, we should have made it maybe more of a first-person shooter or something else. We should have modernized it a little bit differently. Like, it just didn't stick. And in our minds, we were like, you know what? Hotline Miami is really popular. People do like these sort of fast-paced twin-stick shooters, and that's just not the case. I mean, maybe if we had made it funnier, we had put a pissing mechanic in it or something. I don't know, something else to just shake up what was Postal 1, because, you know, when we first started making Redux, we didn't consider, like, well, maybe people don't buy Postal 1 very much on Steam because it's not very good. We're just like, it's just old. So maybe if we make a new version of it, people will buy it, and that's not the case.
So my real question is, the game Feature came out, which obviously was inspired by.
Sure, yeah.
I don't think many people like that game either.
Yeah, and well, so people love isometric games. It's just they tend to not be shooters. I mean, like I said, there is exceptions, right? Hotline Miami is a wildly, wildly popular game, and it is exactly that. It's a top-down isometric shooter. So I thought there was room for it. And there are zombie shooters like that, too. There are some very successful zombie shooters that are the same way. But Postal is just not very funny. And I think what's sold our games more recently, I mean, in the last almost 20 years, is the humor. And you know, we don't have a team of writers sitting around thinking of the funniest shit. We all sit around at our desks and we just make things that we like to laugh at. And it just so happens that people like to buy it, which is pretty cool. So.
Do you guys ever think that you would maybe revisit the Postal 1 vibe and like different, I don't know.
Yeah, that's actually something we've discussed, and I don't know if it's going to happen anytime soon, but like it was almost one of those thoughts that maybe we could make a mini game inside of Postal 4, like an arcade game that would sort of be the Postal 1 vibe, but a first-person shooter. So it would be darker. It may not be like Brain Damage sort of gives you that vibe. It is a little bit darker. The level that we put out in the demo is not. It's a very bright level that happens to be like more colorfully paletted and funnier, but there are a lot of levels that are darker in that. So Brain Damage kind of gives that vibe, but we wanted to make sure it was a little bit more slapstick. But yes, we have discussed this. So thank you.
Yep.
You're not the only person to suggest that. I was thinking something like that may make its way into the base game, but if not, that's definitely going to be in some kind of outrageous, expansion or something like that. But you're definitely not the only person to come up with that idea, and it's definitely in the running.
Yep.
Like rob a bank. And you
Yeah,
actually
rob
have
a
to
bank,
rob
or I don't know,
Yeah.
molest a friend that's sitting next to you, or
We
something.
were actually taking a beer last night, and I was like, dude, we need to put some shit into that. Like, people need to say 5 times like pussy, like randomly in conversation, but the other player they should not like say, hey, is it your card or something like that, and you need to hide that you're the one with the pussy card or something like that. It's gonna be pretty funny, I think, to do shit like that. So we will brainstorm with more beer soon, and of course send your ideas.
Yes. Yeah, well, we didn't have navigation for the game. But we did have like a bass hunter. Like it was like a fishing thing that would pop up and show you where people were. And yeah, there was a mini game where you did things like that. So it's actually been discussed to bring back for Postal 4. So if you haven't played Postal 2 since middle school, maybe you should try now as an adult. Well, unfortunately, it's a little before my time, right? So I didn't start with the company until 2001. But I mean, the game came out. It had a big publisher. Panasonic started a whole separate division called Ripcord just to publish this game. They had a huge presence at E3 1997, and it made a lot of news, which, for better or for worse, is exactly what drew the controversy, right? Like all the major networks put this on, and then they had to sort of control the narrative afterwards. And obviously there was a million little things that came together to get the game taken off the shelves. But really, Joe Lieberman is probably single-handedly responsible for that. So. Yeah. Well, when you have a company like Activision spending billions of dollars in advertising and storefront stuff, buying end caps, like there's just too much money behind it. I mean, at the end of the day, anybody can get away with anything if you have the money behind it, right? Like Rockstar accidentally put a sex mission in one of their games that the ESRB didn't know about, and they were selling it at Walmart, which I couldn't sell a game at Walmart if I tried. Grand Theft Auto was not only not taken off shelves, all it did was sell more copies, which is great. Like, it should sell more copies, but, like, you can get away with anything if you have the money. Mm-hmm. There you go. Chuck Heston for president, everybody.
All right.
Stand up and show everybody your Postal Dude cosplay. Everybody applause there. Beautiful.
One of my questions was, do you actually have the manuscripts for the first movie, the original manuscript that you said had intended to be a little bit darker?
Honestly, I haven't seen it in a while, and it was at a different office when we had a different server. And remember when I told you that game devs aren't the best at computers? We've lost a lot of stuff over the years, including source code for things and our treatment for the movie. So no, unfortunately. And if I did, I'd love to put it out. But I want to say the movie that we gave him sort of ended up becoming Rampage. If you've ever seen, it's not the same thing, but he made Rampage, which was, it wasn't exactly what we gave him, but it was sort of more in that ilk.
My second question, please put Postal Dude in Fortnite.
So the question was, can we put Postal Dude in Fortnite? I can't. But while we do use Unreal Engine, which is made by Epic, to make Postal 4, we are not allowed to use their logo on the game. We are not on the Epic Games Store. It is very unlikely that we will be in Fortnite. I mean, we're on the Switch, and we get people asking for us to put the Postal Dude in Smash Brothers too. So I would love it, but it's just probably not going to happen. So the only way things like that happen is if there's major fan campaigns for it. So call everybody you know and start a
petition.
Yeah, exactly. You get a petition, everybody sign it.
Rude. Yes, we are.
We discussed that yesterday, so yes.
There was a recently semi-recent, very successful comic called Postal that released for 2015-2018. Some people who made it are actually here. Would you consider a crossover?
I believe the comic's called Going Postal, isn't it? Or is it just Postal?
Just Postal.
I don't know them. I know that we've been in light discussions with them. I mean, so we are the IP holders for the Postal brand in the entertainment industry for video games. He made a comic book about it, and yeah, I mean, we'd love to talk to him. So, yeah. Yep.
Which gave me a little bit of deja vu to you guys with them getting the force and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You may not be in a position now, but if you ever, had more secure funding, could you see yourself being like a kind of a guide to games that run into these sort of issues with being censored and stuff like that?
I don't want to tell people what to do, and I mean, I tell them what we do, and the answer is what we do is we just tell everybody to go fuck themselves. I mean, it's we make, like I said, we make what we want to play, we make what we want to laugh at, and if people have a problem with it, that sucks, and if they don't, then they don't. And I do know the guys over at Destructive very well. They're friends. They were actually trying to make an AO game. Like, they contacted the SRB, they asked for an AO rating. That's ballsy. I would never ask for an AO rating. In fact, when we were working on Postal 4, I contacted the SRB and I was like, I don't want to be banned from systems. Can we not get an AO rating? And they were basically like, you will not get an AO rating unless you really want to. So, like, their whole thing was to hardcore shock. And while I can't for for sure say that the original Postal devs weren't like, we need to shock people. That's not what we do. We just, like I said, we make games that we think's funny, and it does tend to shock people, but that's just like a happy coincidence, I guess.
So, I know you mentioned Rockstar earlier.
Yep.
Grand Theft Auto, they get away with it because it's like.
It's the largest piece of media in history. GTA 5 alone is the largest piece of media in history.
A lot of it has like slapstick humor, and I'm pretty sure there was another game by Rockstar. Correct me if I'm wrong. Manhunt.
So they sold Manhunt at Walmart. Yeah, that's a snuff game. Yeah, it is videotape. It is, you are a prisoner and you are being videotaped brutally murdering people. Yes, they sold that at Walmart. Correct.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it's hard to find now, but I was thinking about what you're talking about, and I feel like a lot of the reasons why those games get away, like even Fortnite, like we like laugh at Fortnite, but it's like you're still shooting people.
Of course.
Is it? You think like slapstick for Postal 4? Like I know you were leaning towards that. Do you think for the future, for like a strategy of getting a publisher like that, slapstick? Because even Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not just the violence. It's literally the name, right? Like, yeah, we're still the only company that lets you put cats as silencers on your guns and lets you pee on people at will. I'm not sure that's the exact reason we're not getting a publisher, but they're not telling us that. I think it's just, you know, we pitch these games to people, and the salespeople are like wildly interested because they know there's a lot of money there. They know there's a lot of potential there, and then somebody up the food chain is just like, no. This isn't going to work for us. Gary Coleman, rest in peace, Gary Coleman, yeah. Gary Coleman was in Postal too. We actually kind of brought him back to relevancy back in the day, so.
Last question.
Without, I guess, revealing too much, what's the most obscene or ridiculous thing we can look forward to in Postal 4?
I mean, most of the game's already out right now in early access. One of the missions on Tuesday in the game is you are launching Americans into Mexico because they can't find jobs in the United States. So you have to launch them over the wall out of a slingshot car. So mildly telling. I don't know how they live, but and I can just go run across the border in the game. So I'm not sure why I have to shoot people, but that's kind of one of the missions in Postal 4 is to do that. So it's pretty wild.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. You can find us at the BMN Entertainment booth. We are at 3027. Come talk with Rob about the board games, with Mike and Daniel about the games. I think you will be here until 7.
Something like that.
Yeah, it's closed at 7, so yeah, makes sense.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And one more thing, everybody. This right here is the artwork that's going to go on the card game. Ryan G. Brown, he's here right now. If you want to go check out him and his work, he's in Artist Alley. So, yeah, thanks a lot, everybody.
And you're going to enjoy the
Awesome.
comics as well that we'll release in 2022 as the board game. So a lot of stuff coming up for Postal.
Yep.
All right.
Tell your friends. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.